Hariyo, Hariyo, Hariyo. Hello, my friends. It's Easter, time to celebrate the resurrection of the divine. This is not a story that has happened in the past. This is something that should happen now all the time. That divinity that we have forgotten. It's like that the divine is nailed on the cross of time and space. And what we need is to wake up that awareness, to resurrect that divinity. That Son of God is in each and every one. It's not that there has been one Son of God sometime more than 2000 years ago on this earth. Everybody has that potential. Everybody has that divinity in themselves. You are that. We just have forgotten. And when that is forgotten, it's like being half dead, being nailed on the cross, a victim of time and space and karma. You are prior to that. Becoming aware of that is like resurrecting that divinity. Mm. It cannot possibly be dead, so it need not be resurrected, but as an experience from being a little victim pushed around in this story to become aware that nothing can do anything harmful to that. It's like becoming alive, like being resurrected. Mm. So Easter is a time that one should remember that. Let's not continue to live half asleep. Let's not continue to live as a victim of the circumstances, as a victim of karma, as a victim of so many influences. Become aware that you are there prior to all that in your pristine purity. Now, Marie has written to me that yesterday, and she was in a Catholic service for Good Friday, and it touched her very much. And whenever this happens, it's like her old Catholic, strong Catholic upbringing somehow gets a bit into conflict with Advaita. There is no conflict. Conflict has been produced by the authorities of the religions. The conflict has produced by our own mind. There is no conflict with devotion to God and Advaita. Somebody who is looking for the self, wants to realize the self, wants to wake up to that self-aware state, is also full of devotion. Devotion, if it's sincere, devotion to that essence. And we can look at it as the self, as our own self. We can look at it as God. God has that possibility of being personal and impersonal, and much more, more than we can possibly imagine. There is no conflict looking at everything as an expression of that divinity and being devoted. So, Marie, if you start to have sometimes a bit of doubt how to bring the two together, don't even wonder about it. It's not a problem. If you feel devotional to God, then by all means feel devotional. It's the sincerity that counts and not the basic mood. If you feel like inquiring, then inquire. Inquire into the self. Who am I? What am I? What is it that makes the experience possible? Sometimes the devotion may manifest more abstract as vichara, as inquiry. Sometimes you may feel that devotion when you are in the church, when you are following a sincere ritual, that you feel there is something there and you feel connected with that divinity. Divinity has as many aspects as you possibly can imagine. Mhm. Divinity is all one, never changes, and yet it's full of possibilities, full of potential. Everything that can be imagined, that can manifest, is an expression of that divinity. If we don't make a conflict in our mind, if we don't create the conflict in our mind, then this doesn't, there is no conflict at all. It's not that you are infidel to one or the other. If you are in the church, it's not that you are infidel to Advaita. It's not that you are infidel to the church if you are in an Advaitic mood. What counts is that we somehow open the heart, that we resurrect that Son of God that is waiting to be aware. And that is your own self. And sometimes we may, in a setup, in a ritual, in a religious ritual, feel there is an opening, there is a closeness. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Sometimes you may feel that simply being quiet. Just be conscious of being conscious, conscious of being alive in the timelessness of the now. We humans have made all these very stiff religions. They all are based on truth, but then the religious authorities had their own interests and made it always into this kind of stiff dogmas. This is true and this is not true, and you have to believe this, otherwise you go to hell. The people fight over it all the time. My God, there's absolutely no reason to fight. What matters is that somehow or other we just open up to that divinity. What matters is that there is a sincerity. that we really long for truth, that we are fed up with being a victim, of being pushed around by circumstances, with being a slave of our ideas, of our notions, of our patterns that we have learned, of all the conditioning that is there in the mind, that we wake up from that we liberate ourselves from that, come back to that purity of simply being here now, open, innocent, curious like a child. Now, Heidi and Ralph has asked me, are we a part of the whole, or are we the whole? Are we all the whole, or are we a part of the whole? Can the whole be at all cut into little parts? Hmm. This is a question that has been asked again and again, over the centuries, over the millennia, I think. It's not something that can be answered in a way that after that you can say, okay, now I understand, because this is prior. The mind and its understanding comes after. First is that oneness. I would say best is that you accept you are both. There is that oneness and nothing is apart from it. There is that infinity, that unthinkable. And everyone is an expression of that. So you are that. Now, in that oneness, there are so many points of perception, centers of perception. Hey! There are so many centers of perception, not separate from that whole. So everybody is that whole. And yet, there is also in that perception, in that experience, something unique, essentially not different, essentially the same. And the experience of that essence keeps on unfolding and unfolding, and there is no limit to that. It goes on and on. You are not apart from that whole. You are a part of the whole and you are the whole. Both. Both is true, but it's not something we can grasp with the mind. Explanations have been given in this way, in that way. Everything is just a pointer to that mystery that cannot really be explained. It's not that eventually you come to the point where you say, okay, now I understood. You more come to the point the question disappears and it's replaced with the experience, with the direct experience. It's not an understanding. Understanding is always immediately a limitation. We understand this or that, but we cannot possibly understand something which is prior to the intellect. It's that which makes the intellect function. It's that which makes every experience possible. We understand by being, but this is not like a definition, an explanation. It's simply a deep-rooted clarity in a way extremely simple, but cannot be put into words. We can just point at that. I think for me, the most efficient pointer is to this question: you are both. You are the whole and you are a part. The part is not apart from the whole. The part is the whole, essentially, but the experience in this particular part keeps on unfolding and unfolding. By that unfolding experiences of all the many, many parts, the whole also is expanding. It's not that there is something that is stable and fixed, and then eventually this is it, this is the whole. Whatever you are experiencing, wherever you are, there is still infinity beyond. Again, something we cannot possibly grasp. Even when I'm saying so, this is just a pointer at the mystery that can simply not be understood. But the pointer may help us to direct the attention in a good way. The pointer may help us to open the heart to that mystery. The pointer may make it easier to become aware. Basically, it's so simple. So simple that we don't need definitions, explanations, simply the direct experience of never being apart from that. It's with all the spiritual teaching like this. We can catch the attention on the level where it is. Usually, everybody's attention is on the mental level, locked on the mental level with all the problems. We can catch the attention, talk about the problems, see how we can remove the obstacles and get subtler and subtler in our understanding what is going on. But it comes to the point that we have to understand we cannot possibly understand truth, the truth. We can understand so many useful things on the way, how the mind is functioning, how we are creating problems, how we are always making obstacles, how it is not the universe, it's not the others, it's not our parents, it's not somebody who is keeping us locked in. It's that we are doing that to ourselves and we can stop it, we can let it go. That understanding is very helpful. The understanding of how the mind is working, the process, how we are creating always those layers and layers that obscure that purity of existence. That understanding is helpful because we can use it to go about it, to remove those layers, to go about it, to free ourselves from that. But you cannot understand the essence. You cannot understand what you are. You are that. You know by being. Now the attention is so caught up in our mind and in our stories that we don't have that direct experience, that we've forgotten about it. And we can learn to turn the attention back to that essence. Whether we are praying to God or whether we are doing inquiry, it doesn't matter. Back to that divinity. Back to the awareness that you are one with God, that you are not apart from God. That simultaneously can say, You are a part of that divinity, but you are also the whole. This is our birthright. Everybody has the right for that. But somehow we are so hypnotized that most of the people don't want to hear this. Get aggressive. Leave us in peace. Leave our life. Let us live our life in peace as good as they can. Not disturbing our reality that we have constructed in our mind with ideas like this. Freedom is scary for the mind that is used to slavery. But everybody who really longs for that has the right for that, because it's your natural state. It's what you are. Of course, we have the right for that. It's not for a few privileged. It's not for just a little elite. That potential, that possibility is there for everyone. So let's resurrect the Son of God. Let's wake up that divinity in ourselves and live in harmony with that everything becomes an expression of that inner beauty, that inner creativity, that inner divinity. Hario, Hario. Okay, my friends, now I stop going about by myself and I'm asking you, is there anyone who would like to come in and say something? You are welcome to do so.
Hello.
Hello, Andreas.
Okay. It might be a stupid question after you just explained that you cannot understand what you really are, but I still like to ask it in the way, would it be helpful to perceive of oneself as a center of perception, to loosen the identification with the body and mind?
If that appeals to you, definitely you can do so. But if it's not coming naturally simply because you conclude in your mind that would be useful, then I don't think it's going to work.
Yeah, because I'm so fixed on like being identified with my body
Mhm,
and my thoughts and my feelings.
mhm.
And yeah, I mean, I'm not doing very much inquiry, but if I do, I try to be more open. But if I don't do it, I'm always acting from the perspective of being identified with body and mind.
Okay, then be aware of the body. We say people are identified with the body, but usually don't even feel their body really. When it hurts, then it's felt. But otherwise, the attention is somehow dreaming away somewhere. So, by all means, connect that center of perception with your physical existence. You don't have to limit yourself and say, I am that body. But this is something that you are experiencing. And if you really put your attention there, if you really feel, if you really perceive the body sensations, then immediately you are connecting with that divinity that makes the experience possible. If you consciously do so. But people do that unconsciously all the time. But then if somebody threatens that physical existence or insults the appearance or something, then immediately there is a big reaction. But most of the time, in spite of that identification and think that's all I am, there is very little awareness about that. So then connect with that awareness where you really experience it. So feel the body sensation and relax. And in doing so, actually, automatically, you're connecting with that more consciously, that which makes the experience possible.
Are there
This,
different levels or intensities of being aware of the body?
yes, of course, we can be very unaware of the body and still stumble along a whole lifetime long. Or you can really put your awareness there and you get subtler and subtler aware. I mean, I know certain Theravada Buddhists, they do try to make their perception subtler and subtler, that they can see uh, subtler and subtler and perceive subtler and subtler. This is more something that happens by the way. We don't have to make that in our goal, but bringing your attention to your awareness of the body immediately connects you with the now, with the timelessness. We just have to relax in that. And then we are not stuck on a physical level, but that is like a gateway where we can touch that which is prior to it. And this is something we are aware. It's not something abstract. It's not like we are putting a philosophy there about something and then try to connect, but at least some awareness is there of our physical existence. We can accept philosophical teachings that there is no separation, but in the beginning, this is just a working theory, whereas your breathing in, breathing out is something that you can be aware of. But you can breathe a whole life long without being aware of the breathing. So, of course, there are different intensities, how we are aware of that. The funny thing is, the more intensively you are aware of that physical manifestation, the less physical it feels.
Does it change to be feel more like energy?
It feels more like a bubble of energy, yes. Hmm. Basically, at ease, at peace, being well, not being always painful somehow or other. Then, and if you are experiencing that physical manifestations like this, incidentally, that helps also very much to remove those pains, to repair that which create pains. Mm.
At the end of my meditation, like you, I'm getting more and more focused, but then my legs start to hurt too, and I have pains in my lower back,
Mhm.
and this always limiting the time that I
Mhm.
can meditate in a way. Do you have any advice for that?
Right, find find a bit your your middle path there. You don't have to immediately give way when there comes a little pain, but you don't have to torture yourself either. It's not that after that you have to think, now I have to sit it through and sit it through and sit it through, and after that you're really hurting badly. So a little control, a little self-discipline about that is helpful, but then you have to find out for yourself how much is really helpful.
Would it be helpful to focus on the pain?
You can try as an exercise. You feel the pain, you bring the attention right into the pain, into the place that is paining. And what is usually happening when there is pain, physical pain, the tendency is that we are getting all cramped up, all stiff. And so you can do the opposite. You go into the pain and relax. Relax in the pain.
Okay.
Right, but if it's getting too much, don't hurt yourself, don't torture yourself. Lay down or get up and walk around, and then you can sit again.
Yes, I do. Because
Yes,
otherwise, the usual way is that I try to sit a little bit longer, but then after like 1 or 2 minutes, I realize I'm just drifting off.
yeah, I see. Yeah, then
Yeah.
anyhow, a bit moving in between may be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So your initial question was, should you then try to be a center of perception? You don't have to abstractly create the idea of a center of perception, but the center of perception is already given there in your psychophysical manifestation. Bring your attention there.
Is it not always there anyway?
Of course, it's always there anyway, but our attention can be totally in another place. Dreaming away about the past, worrying about the future, thinking about what the other fellow said to me yesterday. Right. Not being consciously alive, not being consciously conscious, but somehow that perception is always there, that psychophysical manifestation is there, but the attention may be roaming about in all kinds of fields.
It doesn't really feel like a center to me.
Mhm.
It's more, yeah, it's more like presence.
Right. You can also call it that. A center, when I talk about those centers of perception, then I don't mean teeny points, dimensionless points that remain small. There is a center, but there is also expansion as far as you can imagine.
And that's me too.
That's you too.
Okay. Good. Okay.
Okay. Leave it at that. Hario. Hario. Is there anybody else who would like to come? You're welcome to do so.
Hello, Werner.
Hello, Dial. Back
I
from
just
your retreat.
finished,
Yeah.
just finished 2 weeks retreat. Today I out, so and I was doing all yours. Writing to Andreas. Now I was sitting a long time, watching the pain, watching the body. So and slowly I'm progressing. I feel some movement in myself. Still, my mind is gone, but
Dial,
sometimes I able to.
we have a bit difficulty to understand you. Is it possible that you can do something about it? It's partly breaking up and getting all blurry, so we have difficulties to understand what you are saying.
Uh, we'll try to move up on the second floor. Maybe it will help.
Maybe outside the house you are better.
Yeah, just go outside. Yes. Yeah. Can you hear me now? Werner?
Right
Hello?
now, yes, let's see. Let's try.
Okay, I just finished 2 weeks and I was doing all what you advised. in discussion with Andreas, watching body, watching pain, about 12 hours every day.
Yeah.
So it's very helpful. I feel slowly. I have improvements. I can watch the breath, watch the body, sometimes see my getting crazy sometimes. And I find out that went away what he advised. He described every stages, the first stage, second stage, how it should be developed. And if I waiting for next stage, it's becoming more difficult. I want something more. And I try just to be in the here and now and observe just what is. And it helped me a lot. I just relax and new experience comes really more subtle experience come when I'm not trying to get something more, but just feel peace in the body and accept everything. So that I want to share with you.
Yeah, right.
Was very helpful your advice.
That's great what you are what you're understanding. Because these kind of teachings, they are blueprints for the people who start their practice, that they have a bit the direction, that they have a bit an idea, but then don't take it too much to the letter. So, right, you're perfectly right. You're getting closer to that mystery, to that truth, if you learn to just connect and be here and now, and then let the experience unfold by itself instead of wanting to attain this or wanting to attain that. Yeah.
Yes. More practical, just be here now and here and now. It's becoming more deeper in the moment. I just experienced and I help happy that I'm able to do these retreats. It's discipline is working slowly.
Great, wonderful. So that has been quite a good time, the helpful time, these 2 weeks in retreat again.
Yes. I feel it helpful. Yeah, and for example, before I tried to sit long time.
Yeah.
So, but pain is very difficult. I also absorb the pain, but this time I was able to sit for hours without changing posture. And there was pain, but if I'm just watching it, and now it's changing to something else. And it's not painful, it's just changing sensation, sometimes pain, sometimes less. Yeah, and I feel it's really improving slowly. So I feel this way is for me suitable.
Very good, very good. Go on like this.
Yes. Thank
Great.
you. Thank you, Werner.
You're
Hari
welcome. Thank you for sharing. Hari Om. Hari Om. Is there anybody else who would like to say something? Every manifestation is unique. It's different from one to another. And what works for one does not necessarily work for another. So for that, it's good that we find what is suitable, what comes natural. Even when it comes natural, sometimes we may have to make a bit an effort. Sometimes there may come a time where one gets very reluctant to go ahead with it, and there it's good to continue in spite of that, at least to some degree. It's great if one finds one's own way that is the most suitable, most useful, like Dial is doing Vipassana since many years, and so obviously over the years it's getting more helpful. It's not that he's having the nose full of it. doesn't mean everybody should now do Vipassana. If that is coming natural, if one feels attracted, is resonating with it, one can do that. We can go about it in very different ways. That which is coming natural, that is the best way. But it's good that one finds one's help. After all, we don't have to get somewhere. We don't have to reach divinity. It's already here. It's now. It's never absent. But all those techniques, all those paths, they are basically just ways of becoming aware what stands in the way of that direct experience, and we can learn to undo it. And then body and minds, they are different, so what works for one may not work for another. But if we find what comes natural to us, and then we use that help, knowing it's not to achieve something, it's not to get enlightened, to do these different practices, to use our tools that we have at our disposal. It's to become aware of the obstacles. It's to become aware how we are preventing from being natural. It's to become aware that we are creating our limitations. We are creating our difficulties. We making ourselves suffer. And then when we have that understanding, when we have that insight, we can go about it to remove it, to let go of it. Again, I'm asking, would anybody like to come in? You're welcome. Just being here and connect is enough. If there are things in the mind that create sometimes these loops, one broods about it, goes around it, then it's also good to bring it up and talk about it. But basically, nothing is needed. Perfectly all right just to be here now, without saying anything, without thinking anything. In that silence, that construction of our reality starts to get diffuse. Our reality appears to be so solid because we think about it all the time. Our reality is materializing in our experience, but it appears to be so true, so solid, so real. But then we are not even aware that we keep up that perception of reality by thinking about it in one way or another all the time. Stabilizing in that way, that experience. Unfortunately, then one has the tendency to become a victim of that reality, feeling like a victim, feeling a helplessness, a powerlessness, and suffer hell because of it. If we learn to be here, if we learn to be quiet, if we learn not having continuously that reporter in our head that is reporting everything and making comments about everything and judging everything into good or bad, when that reporter shuts up, when we are getting quiet, then that awareness dawns, oh, this reality I have been holding on to so dearly is not as real as it appears. It's becoming diffuse. And when there is an expansion, many little things that seem to be so very important. It can be ideas, it can be possessions, it can be relationships, everything that seems to be so important suddenly is not more so important. That awareness dawns that everything is continuously changing. It's in a flux. It's never staying still. Everything in manifestation. But prior to that, there is that purity of existence. Our job is just to become aware how much we are cluttering that up so that we hardly can be aware of it. Our job is to become aware of what we are doing, become aware of the obstacles that we put in the way, and then learn not to do that anymore. So, my friends, I'm asking again, is there anyone who would like to come? You're welcome to do so.
Hello.
Andreas is back. You're welcome. Since nobody else wants to talk, you can very welcome.
Yeah. Is it possible to describe how we are cluttering up our divine reality?
We don't have to have that described because it's that which is happening all the time, right? Right in our experience. No. We are cluttering up that reality by holding on to our belief system. Our belief system has been very much directed from the earliest childhood by the people who brought us up. And then we have also been instructed not to really question that. This is reality. This is sincerity of life. This is true. This is what matters. And so then that mechanism, that pattern is already there on the way. But once we start to look at it, then we become aware all the circumstances of our upbringing may have contributed that the system is like this, that the conditioning is as it is. But once we are becoming aware, then we see, okay, but I'm repeating the same patterns over and over. And being aware that that's what I'm doing, then I become aware that's how I'm creating obstacles. That's everything, all my reactions, all my emotions, all my thoughts that create more of a sense of separation. They are actually those obstacles that prevent us from being aware that all is connected, that all is one.
I believe that there is a Buddhist model that describes this process. It's the cycle of dependent origination, like how we bring up this reality of ours. And one point in it is called name and form.
Yeah,
Like that we're are there two modes of perception? There's a mode of perception without name and form, and one with name and form, and then
well,
maybe even one name and form and still not being identified.
right. I mean, that we can function reasonably on this level, some name and forms are necessary. But the thing is, it's not really the name and the form that we are seeing that is creating the obstacles, but after that, there is always immediately the tendency to put it, oh, I see this, yes, that's that thrower, to put it in our orderly arrangement of our reality, of our sensual perception, of our ideological perception. So there is always the judgment. Yes, this is good, this is bad, this is nice, this is not so nice, this and continuously giving attributes to it. If we don't do that, then all that energy is available to let the experience of what is expand. To be concerned and always busy, busy, busy in our mind, in our body, then there we are preventing that inner beauty, that inner potential to express itself.
Sometimes it's very difficult to not judge what you're watching.
Mm.
Because, for example, 2 days ago, I was watching a documentation about Trump fans in the south of the United States, like people that like big trucks and they like to shoot machine guns. That's like their hobby, and a shop full of Trump devotionalities that you can buy, and it was I try to be stay open-minded, but it was very difficult in that situation, watching this and
And not
like a lot of
standing
things
in judgment.
yeah, yeah, a lot of the things they say were like very simple, and yeah, it was very difficult not to close up.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, a lot of stuff that you can hear and see what's going on uh, in this world is very easily producing that reaction that this is completely stupid. God knows what. But then when we see that, we can also step a step back and watch our own reaction. You need not do the opposite, wanting to be open-minded and say, oh, everything is so wonderful and good, when it's on its own level not wonderful and good. But the people who are involved in things that we think they are, it's not expansive, it's contracting. We can learn to look at them not judgmentally, but oh my God, how much they may have put a barrier between their perception and what they really are. Look at them with compassion than rather with judgmentality.
Yeah, sometimes I can see that. I mean, if you meet them, and if they are your neighbors, in a lot of ways, they might be nice people that help you if you have problems or anything like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
But as soon as you start to talk about political opinions and like they start to deny climate change and stuff like that, then it gets difficult. And I don't know how to balance these two viewpoints.
Mm. Well, then you just stay in the safe topics, and you can have a nice exchange, a nice friendly exchange. And as you say, they are friendly and come and help you. And of things that what you know, that you have very much different opinions than they have, then and you know from experience, it's not helpful. It's not that our outlook is getting more expansive. Then it just becomes sort of a pull and push, who is right and who is wrong. And that is completely useless. And so when you see, you just can, if possible, go around that and connect with them in a more basic way instead of wanting to discuss and fight about opinions.
I mean, I learned that it's completely hopeless to discuss things like that because I mean the opinions are based on some other values that you usually don't reach in a discussion. And yeah, so yeah, but I thought maybe you have some helpful hints how to bridge that gap between yeah these two kinds of people that is very evident in the United States right now, and is becoming much more evident in Germany too. That like there are two two groups of people who perceive the world in very different ways and have very different sets of values.
Right. But their sets of values is not so important. What is important, how much they are capable of living it, of expressing it, that it's something natural there. So you have perfectly the right to choose your company, but then you cannot always choose your companies. Then many times we are confronting people who are living in just a totally different way. But then with them, you can just be in a practical way interacting, and most of the time that's not difficult at all.
Okay.
You don't have to say, oh, I'm in this group, they are the other group, so we cannot communicate when it's going, when it comes to day-to-day matters, then you can very well have a very friendly exchange and more often a helpful exchange.
And what do you do with the desperation? For example, when Trump was elected the first time, I was in a Zen center in California, and about I think 98 or 95% of the people there were very desperate
Yeah,
because they already understand what was coming.
yeah,
And I mean, it's even getting worse now.
yeah.
And how to deal with the desperation when you feel like, I mean, it's even worse for people living in America, I guess, and who are politically minded a little bit more on the left spectrum, and they see that a lot of the things they like U.S. aid programs and stuff like that, is all going down the drain. Then, like, how do you deal with the desperation?
Hmm. You're talking about your desperation when you see that, or you're talking about the desperation of them?
Half and half, because sometimes like when I watched the documentary, I
Yeah.
got to get desperate too, because I realized there's really no, it's really not bridgeable. But in the beginning, I wasn't so desperate like they were, because I thought it's not going to be so bad. But now I more and more realize it's going to be really bad in a lot of ways, that like the economy might collapse or get down, and it's terrible for climate change. And in Africa, people might die of AIDS because they don't get their medicine anymore that they have gotten before, and all this stuff is and yeah. So
There is an endless list you can
yes,
you can
yeah. And
worry
sometimes
about. Right.
and then I mean, there's a part when I get a little bit more distant and think like, okay, like in Buddhism, it's like life is not perfect, and there is to be some kind of incompleteness or suffering in the world that has to be. But sometimes I think, but it doesn't need to be so bad, and it doesn't
Yeah.
need to. It's just some of the decisions that are made just seem to be stupid.
Right. No, it doesn't need to be so bad. And what can we do? I mean, yes, you started the list, and the list is basically endless. If there are items in that list where you think I really physically can do something about it, it's my call that I'm entering that, then you can do that. But for most of the things, you may not be in a position to do anything about it. Then how to deal with that? That you accept it as a fact that it is manifesting like this, but then you remind yourself that you can always connect with that which is prior. And from that perspective, all this is not so real as it appears to be. It's a momentary manifestation. And you stepping out of it and you getting yourself in harmony, you are actually doing something about it. You're contributing. Whenever you are restless and worried and maybe down and just a dark mood, then you contributing to the difficulties in the world. But because you are radiating those energies and others also pick it up. But if you make peace with yourself, can accept that there are many not so nice things going on, but you are not getting overwhelmed by it. And if the despair wants to come, you let it come, you watch it, you see how it is manifesting, and you relax and you let it go. And then you can reassure yourself that actually your best contribution is to make peace in yourself, to be at ease and in harmony with yourself, to being self-aware. That is doing something to the whole atmosphere, to the collective consciousness. And other people have it easier than to get out of that me, me, me very limited way of thinking and feeling and acting. So actually you are doing something about it, even if you don't do anything, if you live consciously. If you hear things that are devastating, and then instead of being just pulled into a dark space yourself, you accept, okay, that is going on. It's just one level. But I have that aspect in myself that is not affected by any of it. And incidentally, all the people involved in what we are hearing about, not nice things that are going on, they also have that possibility to step out and connect with that divinity. But they have hardly, barely the idea. But then if you do it, who has somehow easier circumstances, if you connect with that as good as you can, then you are sending something very useful, very helpful in the collective consciousness. And others may easier pick up a very helpful, a very good idea, because you have also done your part to improve the situation by not letting those things pull you into darkness, but on the contrary, see it as a challenge, and you make sure that you are not getting sucked into it, but that you are somehow evolving out of it, and then actually it has been a useful experience.
Okay.
Again, I say, sometimes spiritual people, they want to show how spiritual they are, and they tell, oh, that is so wonderful, and this is so wonderful, and everything is nice. And it's not. So it's not that we have to somehow try to trick ourselves into being so and fake enthusiast and fake optimist. You can see things on their level for what they are, but at the same time, you free yourself from that level. You are not a victim of that level. You have just this psychophysical manifestation. It's like a communication possibility on the beings who are manifested in on that level, but you are prior to that. You are free. Nothing can touch that. If you are sure like this, if it gets more and more an experience, and then you go through the crowd, you radiating something that everybody there is benefiting from. So we can do something about it, even if externally we cannot do anything about it. In many cases, we can. Sometimes something may come up and it's clear, okay, I have a role to play there. Something pulls me into it, and you go for it, and then uh, things take their course in whatever way. But most of the time, directly, physically on that level, it's not, we don't have the call to go and jump into all those situations and try to improve them. But we can see them, and instead of being pulled into negativity, we can connect with that essence. Then you don't get hurt by it, and you do something actually very useful for everybody else.
But is it still okay sometimes to speak up and say
Sometimes,
something
sometimes
like,
you may feel this is your role there, but then you just speak up and you don't care whether people believe it or not, whether they pick it up or not. But then
okay,
if we speak up simply because we have an ID, and then the other comes with another ID, and then we get into conflict and fight with each other, who is right and who is wrong. And it's a total futile exercise. What matters is that you connect with that which is prior. And then On the relative level, you may have your opinions, and if you feel sometimes to express them, you express them, but then observe yourself. Do I just want to show off? Do I want to somehow gain in that way again a little extra gratification by showing my knowledge or showing that somebody is wrong and I am right? There, it's again a mind game. It's again an ego game. But sometimes it may be perfectly valid that you say, hey, come on, what are you guys talking about? And if you see an opening, then was worth the while. If you see no opening, then you don't have to get obsessed with it. Yes, 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 it's my duty. I have to tell them. In that way, we are taking ourselves again too important. Ourselves as a person, ourselves as a name, ourselves as a member of society who wants to be respected.
Okay.
Be natural. Right. And then we are finding our way. Okay.
Okay.
Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya.
And then, yeah.
There is some more time. Nobody else has been talking. Is there anyone who want to come in for the last few minutes? You are welcome. Often the question is, what should I do? How should I behave in situations? That I'm doing the right thing? That I'm doing the thing that is not offending others? And the more we are getting tense about it, the more we have the tendency to act in such a way that people are offended because they pick up the tension. Learn to relax. Learn to be again like a child. In spite of having a knowledge that the child is not having, we can have that innocence again, that spontaneity, and just feeling at ease and not worrying about things. Should I act this? Should I act like this? Should I act like that? What is the right thing to do? What is the wrong thing to do? Just let your actions spontaneously unfold. And if sometimes there we are doing things where we say, oh, that was not nice, that was not helpful, then we are wiser for the experience. If necessary, we can apologize and then just come back with that increased experience, with that increased wisdom of just being natural. When you walk into a crowd, you just remind yourself to be natural, to relax, not how should I behave, how should I not behave. You remind yourself to be what you are. All this is momentary. It comes, it's there, it's going. We give it too much importance. Now, in context with what Andreas has been talking, of course, there may often be that urge, something should be done. And then it comes, maybe I should do something about this situation or that situation. But about worldwide situations, usually none of us have the position that we can do something about it. But what we can in our little story, not to create unnecessarily problems, not to unnecessarily hurt living beings, and then just be natural, not concerned how is it going to be appreciated or not appreciated, what I'm saying. I never knew how much of that I was always carrying around with me. But finally, when it was becoming clear, there was the moment to work on it and let go and let go. And sometimes it works, and sometimes the old habit simply pushes us and pulls us to go into situations which we basically don't rather to avoid. But if we are alert, we become aware of those blunders and again can drop that and learn to be. Learn to be here and now and not wonder what are they thinking about me. Am I presenting myself properly? Simply, naturally be. Be alive, be here, be now. And then go about the daily business in a relaxed, detached way. So much energy can be spent always wondering, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? Not wanting to make a mistake, or then having a bad conscience, thinking, oh, there is so much misery and I'm not doing directly about it, something about it. By being here, by being now, by consciously live, by consciously being conscious, consciously alive, here in the present, there we are contributing something very special that is uplifting, that influences the people that have contact with us, and ultimately it's connected to the whole common consciousness. Then when you see there are terrible things going on, but it's way beyond my jurisdiction, it's way beyond my reach physically, there is no need of feeling guilty about it or despaired about it. Okay, but here, now, wherever I am manifesting, I can go about it to contribute to the collective consciousness by living, thinking, acting as good as I can, that I am okay with it. This is not as real as it appears. This is a magic show. This is a place where we are projecting into to learn, to grow, to collect experience, to get wiser for the experience, to unfold in strength and clarity and love and radiate. Everything that comes, whether it is nice or whether it's a non-pleasant situation, is a challenge that we can pick up and get that much the stronger, that much the wiser. It's all in relativity, but still, somehow consciousness likes to experience, somehow consciousness likes to learn, somehow consciousness likes to expand. And that's why we project it into this magic show. So We can do what we can do to bring some light, to bring some love, to bring some goodness into it directly, being with people, but at the same time, we can contribute by more and more simply being in harmony with ourselves. And there we are relaxed again, not concerned about so many things, like a little child who is not filling the head with all this concern about the neighbors, about the past, about the possible future, but simply is still very consciously connected with that essence without knowing too much about it. Still, that purity, that spontaneity is there, and we can regain it because it's natural. Let's live in a way that helps us to be awake. Let's live in a way that helps us to be clear. Let's live in a way that makes us feel that everything is connected instead of creating more and more the barriers that isolate people from one another. And the more we isolate, the more then the consciousness is like forced painfully in a little bubble, just going round and round and round and round instead of being natural. And naturally, consciousness left in peace is beautiful and expansive. Let's live in a way that that inner divinity has a chance to manifest itself. And that invitation that this can happen is mainly when we stop creating all those tensions, when we stop being always so insecure about our presentations, about this and about that. If we learn to drop all that stuff, then that innocence of the little child is right back there. It has always been waiting to manifest itself. And so letting go and letting this happen, this is the way to awaken that inner divinity from that slumber. Actually, it's never sleeping, but it feels like that when that forgetfulness is there. From that apparent slumber, wake up and shine and radiate. If anybody lives like this, then we are contributing the best that we can to the collective. And if by any chance in certain situations we are in a position to bring about a good change externally, by all means, let's do it. But what we are bringing with our experience into this world, that the most important thing is how we are experiencing, how we are feeling, how we are thinking. If we learn to be at ease, then something creative goes to the world. Let's live like this. Let's express that inner beauty. I wish you all well. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om.